On a 4-inch 3 brake like this, I would use 1.5mm hemp twine, and I'm going to put just 8 vertical passes on it. It's more than enough to hold it together. On a bigger shell, I would use 16 or 24 verticals, and on something like an 8-inch, I would probably use the 1.5mm thick twine. It all depends on how much space I've got, how much clearance I've got in the gun. I don't bother off-centre spiking it. You can do if you want, it doesn't make any difference. I just bring it up across through the centre. As you pull nice and tight, you'll see the gap coming even closer together than it was on the shell press. Go up to the fuse, and I do a 90-degree turn around the fuse. Back down the bottom. Across the centre again. Try and keep your 2 strands of spiking laid flat side by side. Around the opposite side of the fuse. Okay, that's my last vertical. I've got 8 verticals on there now. Now I bring it down to the bottom. You haven't got to get it down in half a turn or anything. You can take a couple of turns to wind it down to the bottom edge. Good tight turn around the bottom edge, close to where the end disc is on your 3rd brake. Now spiral it up fairly quickly in inch-wide spacings to within about 3/8 of an inch of where the gap is on the 2nd and 3rd brake. You've already spiked the shell. This is not for containment or anything, it's just to hold these brakes together. Okay, now just feel where your gap is, and about 3/8 of an inch from the actual space between the 2 brakes. Start winding it around straight rather than in a spiral, and lay the string right up against itself. Nice and tight. What you're trying to do is wind a solid band of twine that will be in contact with the 3rd brake for 3/8 of an inch. Go over the join and be in contact with the 2nd brake for 3/8 of an inch. And this is the reason I put the pasted paper in the gap between the brakes, is that when I actually come up to where the gap is, my string lies down nice and flat. It doesn't disappear down the little canyon between the 2 brakes. doesn't look nice, and it's just not the right way to do it. You should be leaning back a little bit when you're spiking. You should have quite a bit of body weight on the string to get it nice and tight. Okay, I've just past the joint now, and I'm just starting up the bottom of the second break. Okay, that's probably far enough. Now, spiral it rapidly down with big wide gaps to 3/8 of an inch below the top of your second break. If you're wondering what that noise is, it's a foot-long lizard with green eyes. Got several of them in the workshop. One's behind the tool cabinet. My wife's petrified of them. They don't bite. They just look pretty awesome. Just come close up so you can see what I'm doing here. I've wound it up pretty well spaced. You know, I've got 1.5 inch spaces here where there's nothing. And then I've got this band here. The actual join is where my finger is. So I've got a 3/8 of an inch wound onto the third case here, and another 3/8 of an inch wound up onto the second, and then up here the same. You can see where there's a slight indentation there. That's where the join is. I've got 3/8 here. I want about four or five turns more up the first case, and then we're done. Okay, that will do. And then continue up to the top quickly, big space. Put one of these crappy half-inch knots around the top here. top edge. Tight. Oh, and broken. Still tight, okay. Force my scissors under there. And just pop the string under there. And then lock it down. Lock it down behind here, behind that vertical. Do it again. Okay, now it's secure. Okay, there you go. So basically what's happening here is the shell comes out the gun, the first brake goes off, this shell casing has completely disappeared, and along with it about half the twine on this band here goes with it. I'm going to rub some Elmer's glue on this in a minute just to hold it all together, otherwise even with the paste layer on the outside of this afterwards, it's possible that the paste layer could be ripped off and then the whole thing unwind afterwards. But if you put a smear of Elmer's glue all around here, it's 100% bulletproof. I've never had one fly apart, I've never had one malfunction. It's a really good way of joining shells together. So your first brake goes off, these two stay intact, this one goes off, your last one goes off. Okay, almost the last stage for this shell. I've got a piece of 30-pound Virgin Craft, 17 by 34, cut grain short. Some very thick paste. almost forgot. A band of Elmer's glue. Don't be mean with it. Just work it in, squash it in with your finger so it goes in between the strands of twine that you've got in this band around here. And this will make sure that it can't unwind when one break goes off or the other one. In theory the paste layer should be enough to hold it together after one break's gone, but you want to make sure you don't want to do all this work for nothing. Okay. Two turns. Working the air bubbles out as you roll it up. It's much easier and much more effective than trying to get them all out when you've rolled a complete 2 turns. Nice pasted camera. Okay, bar the lift and lead ring, that's a finished 3 break 4 inch.